Pierwszym panelem, na jaki chcielibyśmy Państwa zaprosić, będzie panel Uczyć się i poznawać świat.
Podczas niego dowiemy się, jak polska młodzież może korzystać z wymian międzynarodowych i czerpać z edukacji w innych krajach.
W tym temacie wypowiedzą się pani Justyna Janiszewska, dyrektorka wykonawcza Fulbright Poland, pan dr Jim Mazurkiewicz, profesor z Texas A&M University, pan Grzegorz Słomkowski, członek zarządu Polskiej Agencji Inwestycji i Handlu, oraz pan Andrzej Pawlowicz, wicedyrektor Biura Programów Zewnętrznych i Międzysektorowych Fundacji Rozwoju Systemów Edukacyjnych. A całość moderował będzie Dawid Malinowski,
Zapraszamy.
asocjat w Kancelarii Prawnej Greenberg-Taurik.
Zapraszamy serdecznie.
Witam Państwa serdecznie. Ja nazywam się Dawid Malinowski i poprowadzę dzisiaj ten panel. Tak jak tutaj nasi młodzi prezentatorzy powiedzieli, panel jest pod tytułem Uczyć się i poznawać świat. Towarzystwo, które tutaj dzisiaj mamy, naszych speakerów, jest to grupa dość międzynarodowa, z międzynarodowym doświadczeniem, także no, z tego co tutaj widzę, ta dyskusja będzie poprowadzona w języku angielskim, no więc postaram się tutaj stanąć na wysokości zadania. So I suppose, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you all here at our Future Forum at this panel. Thank you all the panelists for joining us here today. Lovely to see you here this morning. And as my colleagues have already introduced our guest speakers, I suppose we will go straight to the questions. We can sort of kick off the discussion briefly from saying that it is fair to say that young people in Poland want to explore the world and benefit from global educational opportunities across different countries. However, as we all know, going to study abroad, to do it full time, does not have to be the only way to experience and taste a life in a different country, different culture, different education system. So our panelists today will discuss how the Polish public sector can support international exchange programs in order to provide our young people with all these opportunities that they seek without necessarily them having to sever their ties with their homelands. So my first question to the panel would be, and I'll ask all the panelists to kind of, share their thoughts with us in a sort of consecutive order. An exchange abroad is an opportunity for a young person to have a relatively low-cost experience in getting to know a different environment and a different teaching system and improve one's foreign language skills. How, in your view, should the future and current students in Poland think about foreign exchange programs? How should they approach them? How should they prepare for them? And what is it that you reckon that they should try to get out of these opportunities? Over to you, Jim.
Dziękujemy za zaproszenie dzisiaj. Ja będę mówić po angielsku, because jest lepiej dla mnie, bo ja jestem bardzo dumny, ciekawy, ja mogę być dzisiaj z nami. To answer your question, let me just say this. I applaud the organizers of this event and thank you for having me here today. What a great opportunity for the youth and for Poland moving forward. To answer the question, let me just say this. I encourage all our students to take an international opportunity because we can see the world through another set of eyes, and I think it's a great opportunity to learn from others because no one country has all the answers. My advice to you as young people first is to learn English and be fluent in it because it is the universal language today. Before you go abroad, understand the culture because all of us have a little bit different culture. Even in Texas is different than New York within our own country. Also the cost of doing business in that country because sometimes it's a shock for students to understand the difference in what things or how things are done in each country may be different than the European Union, than the United States or China, Russia, or wherever it is. I encourage students to learn and see the different education systems, to read up on that before you go, about how different governments operate, the social and economic systems that they are working under, and to appreciate the opportunities that you have here at home, because when you go abroad, you'll see things differently through a different set of eyes. And also the challenges that are abroad, because no one country is without challenges. The value of staying close to your family and culture is important too, and as you travel, as you look abroad, and staying in contact with them while you're going.
Thanks.
Right. Hard to add something to what Professor already said as a piece of advice to young people. However, David, you asked mostly about the public support to that case. I would say that looking from nowadays perspective, I find actually our country quite, our public sector quite encouraging to young people. First of all, we have huge presence in the Erasmus Plus program, which I believe Andrei will tell more about, but there's also a fairly new agency called NAVA, National Agency for Academic Exchange, and there's also public support to programs like ours. Fulbright program was first established by the American Congress, but currently it's in Poland financed half-half by the American government and Polish government. And I could add more examples to that. So I think there's fairly a lot of encouragement from the public funding, I would say. There could be better use on the youth side, because honestly, the entering statement that Polish youth wants to travel and wants to see the world, I think it comes from our bubbles. We live in some bubbles where we believe in this, and you're clearly here, and those who are watching us on the computer screens are a great proof of that. But I talk to professors, I talk to provosts at a number of Polish universities, and I talked to them before the pandemic too. And what I hear from them constantly is that there's a decreasing interest of Polish students in traveling. For me, it's actually quite unbelievable. I will tell you my story. I'm a girl from a small place, from a village of 5,000 people. I come from a well-educated family. My mother was a teacher, my father is an engineer, so it's not that I had a bad start. But, to go to high school, I had to travel every day by bus. To go to studies, well, I couldn't just go out of home, take a tram, and get to the university. I had to move to a bigger city and take care of myself. And yet it was clear to me, I don't know how, I don't know why, it's probably the benefit of being brought up in a family like mine, and the open-mindedness of my parents was always clear to me that international education should be part of my education. And I managed to do that. It was just the beginning of Erasmus program in Poland, still pre-accession country. The first year that my department had the first agreement signed with the Finnish university, and there were only 2 places. And I won one, and I went to Finland. And I am where I am, I think, largely to that experience, to opening myself to the world on a pretty early stage. And though I wish all of you could go for studies, some part of your studies abroad, I think that semester abroad is already a lot, and please consider that there are so many opportunities. I'm sure that the other panelists will talk about that. It can really change you in a good way.
So I can say a few words about these opportunities, because we as a Polish investment and trade agency do not support exchange directly. But we have 53 offices worldwide, practically on each continent. So you are more than welcome if you have international experience and education. Just let me say a few words about Polish Investment and Trade Agency. We are a government agency from the Polish Development Group, which is responsible for supporting FDIs coming to Poland. and also supporting Polish investments abroad and Polish investment in Poland. But we also support export and Polish business worldwide. Therefore, we have 53 offices, few offices in the US also in Houston, Texas. So if you will have an idea to join our team, you are more than welcomed. Yeah.
Okay, so my background is in physics. I'm a physicist, and you know, physicists, they like to have clear definition. That's why I would like to just to agree with you. What do we mean by use, by polish, and by international exchanges? So in Poland, we will have Mr. Mazurek after the lunch. He is official representative of Polish government, but according to my knowledge, we do not have any definition of use. So when we're talking about use, it's not clear how old they are. In Ukraine, for example, originally I'm from Ukraine. I arrived to Poland 25 years ago for PhD study, and as you see, I stayed here. So now I have double Polish-Ukrainian background, and as my colleague, Professor Mazurkiewicz, I think, of course, first you are American, but also you have your Polish roots, and we are actually, both of us, we are also ambassadors of our cultures. Actually, I was checking your biography, and I noticed that you have transcription of your family name, Mazurkiewicz, how to pronounce it properly. I had the same issue. My name is Andrzej, and of course, when I arrived 25 years ago to Poland, everybody was trying to call me Andrzej. But for me, Andrzej and Andrzej sounds totally different, and I said, guys, I'm Ukrainian, please call me Andrzej, not Andrzej, not in Russian way, not Andrzej, but just Andrzej. And this is also my, let's say, intercultural mission. But coming back to the definition of use. So in Ukraine, for example, we have a special legal frame that young people are defined in the age group from 14 till 35. In EU programs, for example, for students, it's from 18 till 30. So different, for young scientists, usually it's up to 35. So there are different definitions, but yes, it's not only about students exchange. So when you can be older, you can be a PhD student, you can be academic staff member, or you can be just active in your professional field, and you can still use opportunity for international exchanges. Polish, what does it mean to be Polish? You know, before the Second World War, Poland was multi-ethnic country. Now, after the open aggression of Russia against Ukraine, we are multi-ethnic country again. We have more than 2 million Ukrainian citizens in Ukraine. Before we had 6 million Ukrainian ethnic group in Poland and 3.5 Jewish. So to be Polish, it doesn't mean to be Polish by citizenship. If you have official residence permission to live in Poland by European youth exchange programs, academic exchange programs, you are recognized as Polish representative. So that's also a good information for all non-Polish citizens who are officially residents of Poland. You can also benefit from international exchange programs which are financed by the European Union. And the last term we have here, it's international exchange. Of course, when you're talking about Erasmus program, everybody know about students exchange. It's about students, but in fact, we have much more offers. In our program, it's also adult education, it's sport, it's school education, vocational education training, and non-formal education. And you can participate in all sectors, actually, if you are really interested to develop your skills. Especially, I would recommend you to develop, to use capacity of non-formal education. Also in frame of such programs like European Solidarity Corps program, it's international volunteering, and for example, we have very good experience of cooperation with Armenian University of Foreign Languages, which is very active in international volunteering because they understood that due to relationship contacts between different cultures, students are more fluent, more able to use also theoretical knowledge they have from the academic background. And yes, Erasmus Plus, it's actually maybe the biggest brand worldwide. This year we will celebrate 35th anniversary. Poland joined to this program officially in 1994 when our foundation was established, and actually we are proud to say that Poland is really using this opportunity. We have a lot of students from Poland in all eligible countries, in all EU member states, but not only, because it's not only about cooperation in frame of the EU, but also global wide. And so you can also use this program for your intellectual learning adventure in other continents. I'm finishing. I was surprised to see numbers of foreign students in Lublin. You know, the biggest number of foreigners among students we have in Warsaw, so it's obvious. Warsaw is the biggest city, the biggest academic center, then Krakow. And then I was surprised that we have Lublin, and we have, guess, which 5 groups among foreign students are the biggest in Lublin, since, according to the last statistics. Okay, my guess was Ukrainian? Yes, more than 50% are from Ukraine. That's very, but the second group, I said also Belarus, they have 5th position. So second position was for, it's really, Turkish. The same capital letter, I mean, not Turkish, but Taiwan. Taiwan.
Oh, right.
The 3rd position for the United States, and 4th position for Norway, Norwegian students. So I was really surprised to see that people from Taiwan, United States, and Norway are coming to Lublin to have also academic exchange. So that also shows us that we have very different geographic compositions and also different needs. And in some fields, professional fields, it makes sense to go also to Lublin to get your learning opportunities. That's why in Middle Ages, actually, it was a must for students to go to travel after your studies. And I believe it should be also must during your study and also after, to have also this, even maybe gap year, to also to use different opportunities for exploration. Thank you. That's very briefly from my side.
No, sure. It's good that you actually touch upon this point of travel, that travel is and or should be related to one's education when he or she is young. So on that point, we have seen a lot of change since the Poland's accession to the European Union. It's been quite a few decades now, and well, needless to say, as we all know here today, our membership in the EU has presented Polish nationals with unprecedented opportunities to go, not just to study, but to work abroad, live there, move freely. So I suppose, in your experience, what were the trends that you were able to observe in the last, say, 10 years when it comes to Polish nationals? Because sure, it is on one hand, going on a study exchange is a low-cost proposition, relatively low-cost proposition, because we have all these programs like Erasmus+, etc. But on the other hand, it is also now possible for Polish nationals to go, let's say, to the Netherlands. Before that, when I was going to uni to the United Kingdom, to get the education and enter the university higher education system on the same terms as locals would. Do you see a change or a clear trend when it comes to how Polish people, young Polish people, go about their education choices? Is it more that young Poles are focused on study exchanges, perhaps doing 1 or 2 study exchanges in course of their university life, or can we see an increasing number of young people actually choosing to go for a full ride, so to go to study a whole degree somewhere else outside of Poland? What's your experience in that? Go for it, Jim.
Well, once again, I would like to say that I highly encourage international study, international travel, and international exchange. I cannot emphasize that enough. We're in a world market, a world economy, and today with social media and the technology we have, it's just a very small place and getting smaller all the time. I would just say this from my own personal experience. I do have a young farmer exchange here with Extension here with the Minister of Agriculture's office. We also have students from Poland and all over the world. 70% of our graduate students at Texas A&M are international students, 70%. So we highly encourage and invite international students to our university. I will just say this, exchanges are cheaper, but they're very good value. And full-time, of course, is a little bit more expensive, but also there's some challenges with that, adapting to the culture, the system, but the experience in itself, certainly in my mind, can be life-changing. But I have one piece of advice to you, and as I do many Polish students and students around the world as well, but I get to see more Polish students than others because I'm very active in recruiting and reaching out. But obtain your undergraduate here in Poland if you can, because it's less expensive unless you can afford it. But then go abroad and get your master's or a PhD. with the university will offer you an assistantship, a scholarship, and then they will waive this out-of-state tuition and some of the extra fees, and you can also, as you can help teach, be a graduate student and do research, that will lessen those expenses. And by that time, you know, as we move forward in life, we may even know more what we really want to do in life as we move forward. But get that degree here and then come as a master's or PhD student, and that cost will be so much lesser, a lot less for you than it would be otherwise.
David, your question is very data heavy, and unfortunately I cannot back up what I say about data regarding all of the destinations. Guess Andriy will be better here. I can talk to Polish-American exchange, since I represent Polish-American Fulbright Commission, and I checked Open Door report, which is being prepared every year by the Institute for International Education, which is collecting data from all American higher education institutions about the numbers of international students that they host. And this is being done annually. The newest report will be published actually this week, I think, or the next week. So the recent data that we have available now tells that in 2021, there were a little over 1,300 Polish students of different specialties, different levels in the US. At least this is what is being reported, and I think this is fairly close to the truth, which is not a high number. And it decreased from the previous year in 12%. And it was never really actually a big number. There were far higher numbers at the beginning of 2000s, but there was only one year when we exceeded 3,000 people, and I think it was the year when there was our government-sponsored program, Top 500 Innovators, performed, and there were almost 500 people from Poland going to the United States for intense 6-week courses, or 9-week courses, and that was also calculated in that number. So definitely United States is not high there, and I think that Professor nicely explained the reasons for that. It is expensive education, it is far. It is doable, it is reachable. If you're interested in that, OFF Foundation is assisting in doing that, and also the Education USA Center that we run at the Fulbright Commission is also assisting in providing information and further steps, and also preparing to the SAT and GRT exams. So you can use those resources if you're interested in studying in the US. But frankly speaking, you know, with all of the Europe open to us, there are so many possibilities far closer when you can visit your family much more frequently, where education is free of charge, just like in Poland, in Netherlands, in Denmark, in Germany, in many, many European countries. Education for Poles is now for free. We know that situation in UK changed after Brexit. So for me, it is absolutely not surprising that far many Poles choose those destinations. I fully understand it. As a mother of 2 growing up boys, I can't even dream that I'm able to send them to the United States, but if they want to go anywhere in Europe, I will support that call. And looking at what is happening with the choices, or what choices the children of my friends make, but this is, of course, anecdotal knowledge. It's not data knowledge. More and more people go for the full course of studies abroad because it's free of charge, and because although we still feel that our level of living in Poland is lower than in many Western European countries, it is growing from year to year. So as families, we can afford to send our child to study in Western Europe. They can also work there legally, so it's becoming doable. It's not only semester exchanges, but real choices for full course of studies.
From my perspective, I would say that you can meet Polish students worldwide. So you should follow your interest, basically. Find the place when you can be in an ecosystem of education, production, research and development. I can give you a good example, because you mentioned that in Lublin, second most popular group was Taiwanese. It happened that I was 1 week ago in Taiwan, I visited Hsinchu, Silicon Valley in Taiwan, and I met several Polish students there. It's, I would say, the largest place in the world producing microprocessors and semiconductors. Apart from companies like Foxconn, like Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, the largest producers of microprocessors, there are 7 technical universities specializing in the field of microprocessors. There are 160,000 students, 12,000 PhD students, and there are also Poles there, which is very, very interesting. So, not only in Lublin Taiwanese, but also Poles in Taiwan. That's what I would like to say you and encourage you just to find your place in your field of interest, whatever place in the world. Yeah.
That's a very good remark, because actually, of course, in Poland we are hosting foreign students, but we are sending actually much more to abroad. And as you said, yes, Polish people and Polish students are everywhere, and you never know whom you will meet. Even sometimes surnames are not typical Polish, but and statistics are a bit difficult to use, because first of all we had Brexit, and before Brexit we had really huge number of Polish students, Polish PhD students in the United Kingdom. After Brexit, this number significantly decreased. You know that in British government they created new program which was called Turing. It's like British Erasmus, but my personal opinion is that it doesn't work. So it's only for British, and it's really a strange program, I have to say. It's okay. I know that it's recorded, but
Well, I am British. What to say?
in our foundation, I forgot to mention that apart Erasmus Plus, we have 2 more programs for students. One is financed by member states of European Free Trade Area, Norway, Iceland and Liechtenstein. So you can also use this program for international mobility activities with Norway, Iceland and Liechtenstein. And actually in Iceland, Polish community is the biggest community. It's the biggest minority. So we have really a very strong, let's say, relationship with Iceland today. We have also one more program which is financed by Polish government. It's called in Polish PAWER, Program Operacyjny Wiedza, Edukacja, Rozwój. I don't need to translate it in English. PAWER, Operational Program, Knowledge, Education and Development. And this is Polish governmental program also to finance international learning mobilities also for students. So there are at least 3 programs in the frame of our foundation you can use. And again, when we talk about statistics, before Brexit and before pandemic, United Kingdom was the most popular destination for Polish students. Now we can say, and then Germany and Spain. And I believe now it's Germany first position, Spain second, and maybe France the third one. But it's about numbers. Of course, each individual mobility, it's a different story. So it's, you know, statistics is just statistics numbers. But when we are talking about quality of processes, I believe that each learning mobility is very valuable. And also when we're talking about foreigners who are coming in frame of Erasmus Plus program to Poland, the biggest group is from Spain and from Italy. Since at least 2010, we have really this trend that many Spanish and Italian students are coming to Poland, and many of them are staying also later in Poland. So it's, but again, geography is, I mean, now we have globalization, and you know, for, let's say, my favorite Ukrainian philosopher, Grigory Skovoroda, by the way, his museum was destroyed a few weeks ago close to Kharkiv by Russian military troops. So Grigory Skovoroda, he used to live in 18th century, and he said that for a smart person, all world is a home. But at the same time, it's also a kind of conflict between globalization and this feeling of patriotism. And that's something we also need to remember, that in ancient time we had 2 types of travelers, Aeneid and Odyssey. Do you know what was the difference between Aeneid? I mean, Aeneid, it's Roman literature, old Roman literature. Odyssey, it's old Greek literature. Odyssey was always trying to come back to his homeland. Aeneid did not plan to come back to his homeland. So there are also among students, among academic exchange learners, we have also 2 types of people. We have people who are doing studies, scholarships abroad, but they have this need to come back to their homeland. But we also have people which are staying abroad. And in my personal opinion, both options are fine. My personal story, I stayed in Poland. I have double identity, Polish and Ukrainian, but double nationality. And I believe that also my first homeland is benefiting from my position in Poland, and my second homeland is benefiting from my relationship to Ukraine. So it's really bringing some added value, so it's also valuable. And of course, for each national government, it will be priority to attract people back. That's obvious. But in the same time, you also need to build relationship between this community of students who stayed or scientists who stayed, also to have this relationship and to have this feeling that we are together. We are one big family of people from Poland. Thank you.
Good. What I would say is, as a person who is actually British, I was indeed hoping not to hear anything about Brexit and its implications today on this panel or in general. But hey, you know, such is life. What I can add, I suppose, to what has been said so far is that indeed, even in my personal experience, the costs of studying in the UK for people who come from outside of Britain have risen, shockingly. So when I went to uni, I had to pay, if memory serves, I think like £3,000 a year, something like that. And now it's, it's £9,000 or I think even £10,000 per each year that one has to pay. So, it has risen quite substantially. So yeah, it's quite sad that, it is these incredibly rapidly rising costs that kind of cut off some of the the brightest and best Polish students from gaining even a portion of their education in Anglo-Saxon countries such as the United Kingdom, also in the United States. Changing the subject slightly, so what do you think, sort of coming the other way around, so what do you think has been done so far in Poland in terms of the public sector, but also the business community, the civil society, to kind of tap into this potential, if you could call it that way, of these people who went somewhere, be it for an international exchange or a full-blown university degree, and decided to come back here, bringing their different skills, their different kind of understanding of how to do certain things. What is it that you guys think is being done here about this? Over to you, Jim.
Okay, well, thank you. I would like to applaud the efforts of this Our Futures Forum. I think that's a prime example and a great beginning of the future as going forward. You've got some of the most outstanding corporations and the government organizations supporting you today, so they're investing in this. Obviously, they feel that it's important and moving forward, and I applaud that effort. I've had several exchanges, and we've had students come to Texas A&M. In the last 10 years, I've exchanged over 850 people between Texas and Poland, between the governments, with business and academia, musicians, artists, etc. And I think we all learned something from each other. And I think the government has been doing a good job, and they're continuing to do more about encouraging more opportunities to go abroad, not only to the United States, but around the world, to learn and see what the opportunities are to bring back home. I will just say this, that we do, and I mentioned this before, we're living in a world economy and a world market, and COVID has made this clear to all of us and the general public, especially with supply chain issues, labor issues, and product availability. Think about the networking of sending Polish students and Polish faculty, academic, government, business, whatever, around the world, and the contacts and the friends that you've made to help alleviate some of these issues as we move forward within the European Union and throughout the world. People do business with who they know and who they trust. And that one statement right there, it doesn't matter what language, what culture, what country. We've got to continue to reach out and develop those relationships, and I think these study abroad opportunities are really valuable. I think, as I said earlier, I think the corporations here are seeing the benefit. I am so proud to see the sponsors that are here today, government and corporation working together to sponsor this event, to invest in the future of this great country and the talent in this great country of our young Polish people.
I really like your question, and let me answer to that from the perspective that I know most, which is the academic exchange and between Poles and Americans. Let me start with saying something that is a little bit off the topic, but I think it's connected, that when we work with our grantees, when we also select people, it is very important for us to see the potential for long-lasting partnerships, for continuing that exchange. Whether it's about Americans coming to Poland, because we actually have as many Americans coming here as we sent to the US, as the other way around. And we want to see that this is thriving, that this is growing, even if it's not easy to work with people overseas, that there's some work going on later and profiting not only that one person, but their home institution and their host institution. That's one thing. Are we doing enough as a country or as public sphere to support people who come back from the exchanges? Well, I won't be optimistic here from what I see. It looks very differently in different places, in different environments, but still we hear back from a lot of our grantees, and our program is considered one of the most prestigious scholarship programs in the world, that when they come, what they brought with them, the contacts, the new network, the knowledge, the publications, is not really welcome. They are either considered a threat or it's just not valid for their home institution at all. They don't feel evaluated somehow at their home institution. And I think it's a big loss for the potential. They have all of the resources they need to continue with their career, but oftentimes it ends up that this career continues in other institutions that is more welcoming than their former home institution. So I think there could be more done, but I'm not really sure if this is the work for the public sector. I think it's a work for us as a society. It's a change of our mindset. We need more open-minded perspective to the world. We need to be more open to different ways of presenting things, of different ways of thinking, to diversity. We have to be more inclusive. And it might sound very strong when I say we have to or we must, but I believe so, because this is where creativity happens. This is where innovation happens. It's not just individuals who have good ideas, but those individuals have to work together and be open to each other and be allowing to each other to put their ideas into action. And this is what we're missing. And this is nothing this or the other government can change. It can only be changed that we as society grow in us, in all sectors.
As I said, as a PIH, we do not support education, but from time to time we create programs like, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, there was an Expo 2020 in Dubai. So we invited 150 students to be hosts in our Polish pavilion. So students from 5 universities from Warsaw, Kraków, Łódź, Białystok and Vistula group of universities were hosts in our Polish pavilion for 6 months. And it was an incredible chance to work in an international community, because more than 200 countries participated in this exhibition. So it was a very big chance for them. As in a second program, I would mention that we are supporting foreign investors coming to Poland. And of course, from our government, they can obtain a grant, cash grant. But we oblige them to spend 15% of the grant for cooperation with our education system. So this money is spent for work and cooperation with universities.
In 2009, the European Union established an initiative which was called Eastern Partnership. And in this initiative, we had 4 different platforms. The first one was about democracy, second one was about economy, third one was about energy security, and the last one, fourth one, was called in a very strange way, in my understanding at that time, it was called people-to-people contacts. And even if you have to translate it into different languages, it's quite difficult. How to call people-to-people contacts, it doesn't sound seriously. And I said that maybe finally the European Union, the European Commission showed human face due to this very human name, because this platform 4 was about education, culture and youth, non-formal education. And it was really a very strong political message that this field is also very important for foreign policy of the EU. And we are happy, our foundation, our agency, that we are also one of the tools which is used by Eastern Partnership Initiative. We do create new channels of cooperation between EU member states and Eastern Partnership countries. A few months ago, we had a big discussion about also our cooperation with Russian Federation, because actually Russia was also invited to join Eastern Partnership, but Russia at that time, they said that they are too big to be in the same group of countries like Moldova, Armenia, Georgia, but initially it was open for all countries, and you know that yesterday 6th package against Russia was approved. On the beginning of April, the 5th package was approved, and Erasmus Plus was also mentioned, and Russia is not eligible anymore to participate in youth academic students exchanges in frame of Erasmus Plus, but is still Russia is still able to participate in non-formal education. And the difference is that the European Commission understood that all universities in Russia are under total control of Russian authority, but civil society still is able to. In my personal opinion, it's not true. Civil society organizations are also under control, strong control. That's why, unfortunately, I have to say that after so many years of using the soft power, we did not manage to achieve the results in the Russian Federation. We still need to work with Russia, for sure, but we need to use different methods, different tools. But coming back to international exchanges, I really do believe that this is very strong soft power tool we can use, we have to use, and it really establishes this community of people with the same values. And again, when maybe I'm mentioning too many times about this Russian aggression against Ukraine, but it's also important to say that this war is quite different from the previous one. Previous we still have between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It's very typical inter-ethnic conflict. In this case, this aggression of Russian Federation against Ukraine is not based on inter-ethnic issues, because many ethnic Russian are fighting on Ukrainian side and many ethnic Ukrainian are fighting on Russian side. It's the issue of values. And for me, it's very important that due to such international youth exchange programs, we are trying to create this community of people with the same values. Of course, you can say that many dictators from Southeast Asia, they had super education in the best universities in Western Europe. So there are examples that like in Syria or in many other countries. So of course, not everybody will bring values from together with master degree or PhD degree. It's not in the same package. But still, I believe it brings added value, and due to such relationships, interaction, we are building this community of people with the same values. That's the biggest result.
What you say about shared common values is actually a fantastic point, because it is very closely linked with education, but not just education at university, I suppose in my experience at least, but also what happens to you after your university. So for instance, just from my experience, I went to England, then studied there, worked in the city of London for a few years, and then quite recently came back to Poland. But I can still kind of feel and see the sort of invisible hands of these shared British values that I got grown accustomed to during my time first at uni and then in England, because it's still different societies which gather people who are alumnus or alumni of British universities. They get people like me involved in this stuff. The wonderful work that the British Embassy here in Warsaw does as well to keep people who are British educated, working and living here, to keep us also in this sphere of shared British values. So I think it's quite often overlooked, this point, but I think it's also very, very important what you just said about the important role it plays. I suppose, conscious of time, looking at the clock here, I'll just ask this very last question, and this will be before we move to our Q&A session. So hand over to the audience here for their questions. So it's kind of a bonus question really on my end. So in your opinion, obviously a diverse group of professionals, individuals, as you are representing different organizations. We found ourselves, a few months ago in this situation whereby we have this, we should say, terrible conflict, to the east, to our, eastern border, and as a result of that, many of these people, young and old, some of them, pupils, some of them of university age, they actually decided to choose Poland as their place of refuge. They came here and they are here living with us, among us, and they are a part of our society. What do you guys here think about our level of preparedness and willingness in order to, take these people in and kind of incorporate them into our current education system, be it at school level or university level? Do you reckon that the government is doing enough on that end? Over to you, Jim.
Well, thank you. I'll just say this. I'm speaking from no experience because I'm not living here in this particular situation, but I do have some comments to make and some observations, and looking as a friend of Poland from the United States when watching on a world stage. The world is watching Poland during this current humanitarian effort, and it has been given world publicity and recognition as a warm, loving country that has not forgotten the pain of oppression of a dominant foreign government controlling their country and stifling the rights of freedom, justice, liberty, and creativity. And with that statement, I applaud Poland for the efforts that they're doing. I said, this is time for Poland to tell its story to a new generation of people that do not remember the end of World War II, the 1980s, and that have never dealt with such tragedies and aggressive behaviors we're seeing today. Poland in itself is a success story for others to model. Your GDP has grown by 5% a year since the fall of the wall. No other country in the world has had that type of economic development. On the world stage, you're one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and you have everything to be proud of. And I'll say this, I'm extremely proud to see what Poland is doing. It's your time now to tell your story. People are watching. Poland is on the map. World has always been on the world map, but right now you're on the world stage, and I applaud your efforts.
Our preparedness were rather low, but our willingness to help and to deal with this through the roof. So I think this is our power. I'm completely not worried about people who would enter and are entering already now academic education in Poland and also scientists, because Polish universities already entered into an era of demographic law, so they can actually benefit from that, and these are fairly grown-up people who can use all the resources they have and language skills to accommodate quicker. I think it's far more difficult at the primary school and high school level, and here I will only say that I very much cross my fingers for that to be well done and to happen well, for the benefit of those children.
I think that as a Poland we are already prepared because you may not know, but there are a lot of foreign workers in our factories. For example, in an LG factory, 40% are Ukrainians, Belarusians, and people from, let's say, Slavonic countries. So I think our society was very diversified, as we even range back to ages before, like before Second World War. So we are prepared. So I would say something different. The biggest problem now in Poland is lack of labor force, and we should accommodate people from abroad in order to make our economy healthy. And this is a big challenge. And we are lucky that Ukrainians decided to come to Poland.
Oh, we didn't have a choice. Unfortunately, now it's before 1989, it was a luxury to go abroad. Now it's a luxury to stay at home. Unfortunately, we are lucky that we can stay in Poland. 4 years ago, I met one colleague in Vilnius during the conference, and she was a young lady, 30-something, 35, and she told me that she is already 3 times internally displaced. I asked how it's possible. She said, I was born in Baku, in the capital of Azerbaijan, in Armenian family. And when she was 5 years old, she had to move to her grandmother, and grandmother used to live in Grozny, the capital city of Chechnya Republic. Then in 1992, they moved to Mariupol and to Donetsk. In 2015, she moved to Kyiv. I met her in Vilnius in 2019, and she was joking, maybe I have a bad luck. A few months ago, she was contacting me that she's looking for an apartment in Warsaw. So we don't know what will be our future. And frankly speaking, when I was in your age, it was 1990s, it was very optimistic period. We were talking about the end of history, so everything was very, let's say, very naive approach. Now, actually, it's very dramatic period, and it's not only about geopolitical issues, but in general about also economical issues, about also even system of education, because today we are still in this process of fourth revolution, industry revolution, and we still don't know how it will influence on the academic system in Poland and in the world. My personal opinion is that in the future we will have a totally new way to learn. And we already, due to pandemic, we already trained ourselves in different digital tools. So I hope it will be more inclusive, and it will be more also, we will have much more opportunities, because when we are talking about exchanges, international exchanges, we were talking about physical exchanges, where you are coming from one country to another country. But now actually you can stay at home, and you can do a lot of exchanges during the same even week. And I really believe that it will bring also new opportunities for people from very different countries, from very different social economical background. And actually, I mean, you know, this saying, what doesn't kill us will make us stronger. So if we will survive this political catastrophe we have today, I believe all of us, we will be stronger. Poland, Ukraine, Europe, world, and also education system will be stronger as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I suppose with roughly 8 minutes of time that we have left for this panel, it will be the moment for us to pass the mic to the audience in case there are any questions to our panelists. So, there's a gentleman there. Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Hi. My question is to Ms. Justyna Janiszewska. You've mentioned, and I'll look at it just to make sure, we need to be more open-minded. This is what we're missing. And in the context of that, I'd like to ask you, and maybe some other panel members could join later if they feel like it, what perspective would you be willing to give to us young people who may, let's say, not be as open-minded as you are at this time, and with all the experiences that you have, what perspective could you offer to bring this idea of open-mindedness closer from a place of more abstract to actual reality for us?
Thank you for this question. Well, first of all, I don't think that, you know, by definition, I am more open-minded than you and all of you. You are a different generation. And just by the forces that shape you, you are immediately far more open-minded. And I think that you will shape a lot of changes in our society. What I meant by this open-mindedness is somehow resilience to changes and to absorb what comes from outside that is in different institutions, in the institutional cultures. And it would be great to break it through, to make us more receptive. I mean, us as people in different institutions, universities, companies, public administration, different places. What I think is definitely underused in Poland is the presence of foreigners that we have here. This is great to hear that we are heavy users of Erasmus Plus program, but I hear from them a lot that they live in their ghettos, that, you know, they spend time with other Erasmus exchange students because all of the Polish colleagues, they already have their wolf packs, they already have their friends, and they are not that interested to share their time with those people. This is a resource that comes to you. You don't have to go to Turkey, you don't have to go to Taiwan, you don't have to go to Spain to experience a bit of that culture and their way of living. You can just reach out to the people who are at your, maybe not school, but in a year or two at the university where you are, in the place where you are, get them involved in different workshops, conferences, just have a coffee with them, talk about their culture. That's the world that is already around you, around us. Does that answer a little bit to your question? Thank you.
I might add to that, if it's all right, just quickly, that let me just say that to become more open-minded, I think you have to educate yourself. I think you are probably, the young people are more open-minded with less negative maybe experiences than some of us has been around a long time. But let me say this, there are good people. I've been around the world. I've been on every major continent around the world 3 times and continue to move and travel and work with other cultures and governments and institutions. There are good people everywhere. You just got to give it a chance to get to know them. Relationships are key, and understanding their culture and their perspectives. I have yet to find, not to find good people everywhere. There are good people everywhere in the world. Some of them just have a more difficult system to work under, and some of their cultures may be a little bit different than ours, but I think you have one thing in common as a society, as a world society, that we all want better for ourselves and for our family. And I think that's uniform throughout the world.
Yeah, I think we had a lady there raising her hand. Yes.
Hello. So my question is for all of the panel members. In your opinion, what is the best time to try to study abroad? Like, it's a good start, or maybe later on when you want to specialize your knowledge, and when you can benefit the most, in your opinion? Of course, it depends, but you know, it's a good start, or maybe later on. What do you think?
Well, I would say very quickly that from my personal experience as a person who was born and bred here and then left Poland at the age of, I reckon, 18, 19 after my matura, it's your formative years as a young adult that I reckon will be the best for you to go and experience something different, because it will add to your already quite developed personality at this stage. It will just enrich it. So it might be a good time for that. But what do you think, Jim?
Well, I think everybody's situation is different, and there's not one size fits all. Your level of maturity, your economic situation, your comfort zone, those things like that. But I'll just say this, whenever you can, I encourage you to do it, and continue to do it throughout your life. I'm 66 years old, and I'm still studying abroad all the time. I'm going to be going to Australia in July for 2 weeks. I'll be in Brazil and Panama at the end of August. I will return back here to Poland in October, and then I will be going to, I was wanting to go to Ukraine, but the situation wouldn't let me go with, and I'm taking 25 adults with me, young adults just like you, and sharing that experience with them. And I've been doing this for 25 years. So everybody's situation is different. There's no really good time. Timing is everything. But when you get the opportunity, I encourage you to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I agree with this. Any time is good if you feel ready to be taken out of your comfort zone, because it will definitely happen to you in bigger or smaller scale. And now every teacher that listens to us will probably hate me, but I believe that education happens at least in 50%, and if not largely outside of the classroom. And you can learn anytime, anywhere. I believe that also volunteering abroad as opportunities can teach you a lot. For me, my most important experience in life that shaped me a lot, that taught me a lot about the world, but also about myself, was actually backpacking for 6 months in Central America. So these experiences can come in different forms and shapes. It doesn't have to be university, but it would be good, right?
I agree with Jim. You learn over your whole course of life, so every moment is good. But as a strategy, for example, you can complete your bachelor degree in Poland and master abroad just to gain international experience.
Okay, what to add? I fully agree with you, Justyna, that yes, we need to remember that you can use not only formal education for international mobilities, but also non-formal education. Actually, volunteering experience, it's really highly recommended by me personally. I did not use it by myself, I was always too old. But please also reflect about European Solidarity Corps program. It's really a good program to use, and usually people are using it just after high school, matura, or just after university. But in general, you can use it between 18 and 30 years. And when we are talking about student exchange, according to statistics, the biggest number of students who are participating are second and third years students. So that's a statistic. But I believe that second year is a good moment maybe to go abroad, because your first year is too early, third year could be too late. I mean, when we talk about your maybe academic development, maybe you can also inspire by something new and you will be still able to change. Of course, the process of learning is long life process and you're never too old to learn, but let's say when you are becoming older and older, you are less and less flexible for new experience, you have your own background. That's why I fully agree that just after Matura, it's a really good time to go for volunteering, and then second year, it's a good moment to go for Erasmus Plus student exchange. Thank you.
Well, all I can say is that, I think we managed to finish in good time. So unless there are any other questions, I suppose one last quick question, then we can wrap it up. I can see there's a lady there. Please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. First of all, gorgeous pics, so thank you very much. I would like to ask you, because we talk about some bubbles, some open-minded here, and I am PhD student, so I'm older than some of you, and I'm working with a lot of universities for all countries, not all universities of world. But I want to ask you, because we see one problem with this open-minded and being students who would to exchange, because we create that bubbles, because in our country and a lot of countries, when you go to school, you must to think that you are go for a biology or chemistry. Do you go for a literature lectures? Then you must go for university to create your, like a biologist or a chemist or a physicist. And then we have PhD students and engineers and everyone who are biologists or then a physicist who would think like a physicist, because the physicists think like a physicist. And I would like to ask you about what do you think, what you have to advise, because when we are exchange, we must choose the university, the lectures and everything, that I am biologist, so I must go to university for exchange, who take me to biology classes for a lot of chemistry and everything, like a classes or something. But I don't have to chance to go for exchange to university to study the literature or to study the histories or to study something it's not in my word for every day. So what do you think about this? Do you think that this bubble exists and this bubble is a problem?
Maybe you would like to respond, because we are just
well, sure, those bubbles exist. We in the Fulbright world believe in interdisciplinarity of research, and I actually very much like that part of the American college education that requires students to take a number of courses that are outside of their major. And they just, by definition, even if they're studying engineering, they have to subscribe to a number of humanities courses and take them. I think this is very broadening, and I know that some Polish universities are considering introducing that sort of system. When I think back about my education, it would do me good, actually. I'm a political scientist, to have some more calculus or algebra, you know. That wouldn't hurt me for sure. So I think that's one of the solutions, just to have it at our home institutions, and then you wouldn't miss it that much, you know, and you would probably shape differently also your stays abroad.
Excellent. Well, I suppose that will wrap up our panel this morning. So again, thank you so much, all of you, for your participation and for sharing your thoughts. And thank you all for joining us this morning. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent.